Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Welcome back to your roadside vegetable stand on the interweb superhighway. This is Daily Dose Radio, serving it up fresh and delicious today. We're looking at Psalm 18, verses 5 and 6. We started yesterday talking about the primacy of prayer. David said, I will call on the Lord who is to be praised. He is to be praised. I tell you what, if this section doesn't encourage you to get on your knees and seek the Lord, call on Him in prayer, I don't know what will. This is just so beautiful. I will call on the Lord, he said in verse 3, so I will be saved from my enemies. Let's go on now to verses 5 and 6. That's where we are today. I'll read that for you from my translation. The cords of Sheol surrounded me. The snares of death, they confronted me. In my distress, I called on the Lord, and to my God I cried. He heard my cry from his temple. My cry was before him. It came into his ears. All right. So again, we have, as I said, the bookends. We begin with I will call. We end here in 6 with I called on the Lord. So kind of bookends, we have distress. And listen to these words. The cords of death, the floods of destruction, the cords of Sheol, the snares of death, all of this. And then he goes on to say in 6, in my distress. Of course he's distressed. I mean, if he is describing his condition in this kind of language, goodness sakes, we all would be in distress if we were describing things like that. And probably some of us listening to this broadcast today could say, yes, I have been wrapped up with the cords of death. They surround me. They're likely to pull me down into the grave. Listen, friend, call on the Lord right now in your distress. This is the great encouragement for us to pray. In your distress, don't look someplace else. In your distress, it's a good time to pray. Pray there. Don't be ashamed to go to Him when it's bad and you need help. He wants you to come to Him when it's bad and you need help. He wants you to come to Him when it's good and you don't need help, according to, your own estimation. But the cords of death, the snares, the cords of Sheol, that's an interesting language there. Now, I just did what some other translations do. So sometimes I complain about it. I transliterated the word. It's actually, the word is the Hebrew word Sheol, and I've done nothing more than transliterate that into English. So I've taken the Hebrew characters, letters, and vowels and turned them into English and pronounced it according to an English pronunciation of the Hebrew word, Sheol. It means hell. It means the grave. And so with death surrounding him and the grave and hell facing him, he says, in my distress. Yes, sir, that's a good time to pray. And to my God I cried. Now look at what happens. He heard my cry from his temple. So we now leave earth and the distress, the snares, the cords, all of that. We leave earth, and now suddenly we're transported to the place where prayer is heard. We see into the temple of the Lord. We see where the Lord is seated. And my cry was before him. It came into his ears. So the Lord, in his temple, hears this cry that's now ringing in the temple and comes before him and enters into his ears. Now what we have in 7, 8, 9, and 10 is the Lord's response to that. So all of this has been leading us up to the theophany that we're about to see, or that is God's response to this earthly prayer prayed by a man who's in distress. Why would God be concerned that the cords of hell and the grave and death are wrapped around you? Why would he be concerned that the flood of destruction had assailed you? Why would he care that the snares of death are confronting you? Well, he does. And if you'll call on him today, from those great enemies as well as the human enemies that surround you, he will deliver. Would you call on him? This is our job, to pray. Join me again tomorrow. We're going to look at verses 7 and 8 on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.